Hi, this is Anna, and this is the Hand Network, and today we are making our weekly stir fry. I was a little unsure of what to cook this week, so I decided to go with peppers because they happen to be what I have available to me at my local grocery pickup. So I was like, I'm going to make a big pepper dish, and I love orange peppers. These are orange bell peppers. They're sweet. However, because I'm a Vata, I am very careful to cook them to death because I do not want to have any reaction to peppers. So we're going to just slice these up like this. I always put my peppers on a plate flat, and I put them with the smooth side down because that way you do not end up cutting yourself. Okay. I'm going to use some oil. And I do know that canola oil is not the healthiest oil in the world, but I'm only using a little bit. And I got this special. This is an organic teriyaki sauce, which is absolutely amazing. I'm going to drop my peppers in my pan, my teriyaki sauce, and I got a big piece of steak. It was on sale at my supermarket, so I decided to try the new market this week, and I couldn't resist it. I mean, the beef just looked amazing. So I went ahead and splurged on that, and we're going to use that to make some steak stir fry. I do throw my veg in with the steak because it takes forever for the steak to cook. I also have a red pepper here. I'm actually going to tip my camera so you guys can see everything a little better. Okie doke. Now, and some people are really precise about we need to make the peppers all look uniform. I'm like, at the end of the day, they add color, and sometimes life is about non-uniformity. It's not about everything looking exactly perfect. So, there's that. And then instead of rice this week, I'm trying to be a bit more healthy because I don't know, but when I turn 30, it's like weight just is a little more interesting than it used to be. This is asafoetida. It is wonderful for digestion aid. So I've got that here. It makes it so that you don't get woozy when you eat, which is a big deal for me. So there we go. I'm then going to chop these veggies up. I've got broccoli here, but I'm not going to put them in, except maybe the thicker pieces, because I want the heads to be kind of still a little crunchy. So what I do is I chop the heads off, and then I break them into like bite-sized pieces like this. Okay. And I'm just going to use a small bowl. Broccoli heads in. But the stalks, the reason I eat broccoli is not because I happen to particularly like cruciferous vegetables, because let's be honest, I don't know anyone that sits there and goes, I just have such a hankering for broccoli. I mean, maybe there are people like that, but none that I know of. So with that in mind, the reason I eat broccoli is they did a study, and it showed that if you tend to eat broccoli, you reduce your risk of possibly getting cancer by so much that I couldn't not eat broccoli. I mean, no offense, I'm like, if eating broccoli keeps me from getting a cancer, this is like a no-brainer to me. So, and And this actually might be broccolini. I'm not sure because it tends to have a longer stalk. So it tastes the same as broccoli, but a little different. So there's my stalks of broccoli. Okay, and I put my stove on like halfway between medium and low, because sometimes my stove is a little temperamental, and that way I don't singe anything. So there's our broccoli. I'm going to rinse off my plate. Okay, now I'm going to get a much larger plate to cut my steak. And I tend to get one that has a rimmed edge, so my steak does not end up falling all over. This is like the equivalent of, I think, what we would call, like where I came from, a top round type. But anyway. And typically I don't get steak this big, but this was a really good sale. So I'm going to pull my steak out of the package. And a lot of people would be freaking out about the raw meat right now. I'm not going to freak out about the raw meat. I'm just going to cook. Now, I think it's very important to be sensible about how you do your meat prep. But I also think that worrying to death about things is something I just don't have time in my life for. So with that in mind, I just don't worry. I'm like, I wash plates, I bleach, etc. But don't worry. And so right now, you can buy stew meat. It's already cut into strips. The thing about stew meat, though, is even though it's much lower quality meat, it tends to be much more expensive than just buying your own meat and then using a really sharp knife, because I just recently picked up this knife. The other thing you can do is, if you feel so compelled, you can take a really clean pair of scissors and you can just snip the meat, which actually sometimes works way better than the other methods. Okay, and I like cutting kind of with the grain of the meat. I also don't mind how big my pieces are. I can always cut them in half again after I've done the initial chop, if you will. Okay. I'm trying to make the pieces somewhat skinny so they cook easier. And what I do after I cut with the grain, is I'm going to recut these pieces and divide them in half, because these are a little too thick, because this is a thick steak. This is not a thin steak. So And there is my steak. I am going to wash my hands here. Okay. And then I like using this kind of spatula. It's got a little bit of a scoop to kind of move things around. Just a wee bit. And this is going to take a while to cook. I mean, beef just takes a little longer, especially when you throw it in with the veg. So I'm just going to let this kind of go on low. I also will probably use up the rest of this because, yeah, you could look at this and go, there are 24 servings and there's 25 calories per serving. But honestly, I'm using this instead of oil, and a lot of this flavoring and the calories are going to simply burn to the bottom of the wok pan. So I don't really worry about that all too much. So there's that. I'm then also going to cook up these. They're a soba noodle I got special. They're multi-grain, and they're ready in about 7 minutes. So when I get closer to being done with this, I'm going to cook up these noodles, and then I'm going to put them in the bottom of my little containers for food prep, and then I'm going to put this on top. And then this week I can heat this up with my soba noodles and get this wonderful, healthy style of ramen, because you have the protein from the beef, you have the at least 2 types of peppers and broccolini. I'm also going to throw in with that, I've got an onion here which needs to be used. I'm going to take him. Plus it gives us one more veggie. And actually my splurge for this summer culinary-wise is going to be, I'm getting hopefully a 41-inch charcoal grill. It's Asian style. I'm ordering it special. And I'm going to be really looking forward to cooking with that. I might get the electric version because that way I could use it in my house rather than the charcoal. But I'm not sure yet. I might get both. You know, it doesn't always have to be either or, peeps. So anyway, we've got this wonderful stir fry with now white onion and I think I have one purple onion left. The reason I'm putting more than 2 onions in is not because I'm just uber fond of onions. Okay, don't get me wrong, I like onions, but because this adds one more vegetable to the pot, number one. Number 2 reason is because we are still in the middle of COVID pandemic, and with that in mind, I figure anything we can do to boost our immunities is a good plan. So, just gonna slice this. And, okay, tearing up. Cut the onion quickly and throw it in. There we go. So there we have it. And this will make me enough food for literally a week. I'm also thinking about throwing in the garbanzo bean, but I think I'm going to hold off on that. I am going to throw in some bamboo shoots in this next batch that I'm doing, or I might do it in this one. But I have some chicken that I bought, and so I'm going to be using this tomato and orange and red pepper with that to make a dish. I'm thinking about making homemade mac and cheese with chicken, which is going to be absolutely delicious and more healthy than just making the store-bought kind without adding a few things to it. And so, there we go. This is just going to simmer for probably, I would say, I'm going to give it 20 to 30 minutes, just because it's on a slow simmer, and it's going to take a while for the meat to cook through. And with that, on and out. We'll come back when this is done, and we throw in the broccoli. Bye! Alright, so I just threw in my broccoli. I'm going to let it cook for about 5 minutes, so it's a little crunchy. This I'm going to drain off and add a little water to my wok, and then I'm going to throw in my soba noodles. And that's going to cook for, it says 7 minutes, but I like my noodles a little more done, so maybe 10. And then that will be my lunches and dinners for this week. Lovely, delicious, Asian-style stir-fried broccoli beef. Ta-da! And the colors are so inviting. I mean, seriously,